Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, everybody. This is your brother, Saeed Purcell, aka the Muslim Highlander,
I am Tamir, Cowboy Tam. Welcome to the Halal Highway.
navigating faith one detour at a time. So, today, as we promised in the last episode, which has now been severely delayed due to a host of reasons, not least of which is him running out of town, apparently to escape the posse, it seems.
Yes.
But we're going to go deep into Tam's story of his faith journey that led him to his shahada, which he said now, what is it, 3 months ago now, I think.
I think so. Yes.
Yeah.
Still here.
Still here.
Still here.
Still here. So we're going to get really deep into his story. Well, at least as deep as we can in roughly 45 minutes. More than likely, actually, if I remember from when we shot it last time, this is actually take 2, by the way. When we shot it last time, we actually stopped roughly midway in the story because we just felt like we had already used up way too much time
yeah,
to begin with.
For sure. For sure.
This is at least a 2-parter when we finally shoot the whole thing.
It might even be a 3-parter.
Right.
Who knows?
Right.
I mean, who knows? So yes, as he said, I am a new-ish revert to Islam. I have basically studied every religion that you can think of on Earth, and maybe some you can't think of.
I gotta ask, what's one you don't think we can think of?
Well, maybe one you wouldn't suspect is voodoo. I studied voodoo for a little bit.
I would give you that one.
I was more focused on the history of voodoo and how it came into America. Very interesting topic.
What little bit I know, I'm going to say a West African origin that came aboard on the ships. Long story. Why do I know this, you might ask? Because my daughter's mother was from Haiti. And so there's a bit of the Caribbean in my background, not me personally, but at least in my family structure.
Very nice. I've actually been to Haiti. So very...
I've got offers to go to Haiti.
It's, I don't know if you want to go now, but back when, it was very nice. I think I was 16 when I went. Yeah. So, the majority of my background, which we have similarities in, I was raised Methodist in Christianity. From there, I went to Judaism.
I think just because I was raised Methodist as well, United Methodist, and I think just for the sake of people's clarity, and I only learned this recently as well, there's currently 3 major, well, maybe not major is the right word, but 3 different subgroups under the Methodist banner. There's the United Methodist, which is the one that I grew up in, and from my understanding, the majority, there is the Congregational Methodists, which is the more fundamentalist. Then I don't even remember the name of the new one. There's another division that started 2 to 3 years ago.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and one of the churches is right down the road here, and I need to have that continuing on dialogue about that. Slight digression, but so
I was raised First United Methodist.
So there you go, UMC.
And from there, as said, I went to Judaism because I had issues with the Trinity, which we can get into. And then I went through
a whole separate episode.
A deep, long journey of trying to find where it is that I belong, only to wind up in Islam, which I was trying to avoid for a short period of time. But it called to me anyway.
A little bit.
So yeah,
you need to go through your story, your whole Judaic journey, especially the Jew school part, which I still think is an interesting journey, and the trip. Remember the trip that you told us about? Well?
A funny thing, something we didn't talk about last time, or maybe we did. I actually spent a month with the Orthodox and living an Orthodox lifestyle. It was.
Yeah, I don't think we did talk about that.
It was rough. It was. It was hard.
Maybe not in that broadcast, but I do remember us having that conversation.
It was hard.
Now that you say that, I do remember that.
So yes, raised First United Methodist, and then when I was 17, 18, I don't know. I finally like woke up one day, and then it sank in what the whole thing was about, and that they were telling me that Jesus is God walking on earth, reincarnated as man. And I had issues with that. Um, it didn't. It just didn't sync with me. And the fact that
let's put a pin in that for a real quick
yeah.
second. There's something that you said just now that triggered something in my brain.
Okay.
So I've been doing this, as you may have already become familiar with, for 30 odd years.
Right.
One of the things I've noticed many times is that a lot of people's journeys, my own included, start around that same time, around that 15, 16, 17-ish
Yeah.
range. And you were just alluding to the same thing. So I guess my question to you is, do you feel through your own journey and in what you know of others' journeys, is there something about that age that sets people on this questing?
I think in the West, definitely. In America and Europe, probably more so. I think there's just something about that age where you're about to go and make your way into the world, and you're about to, leave the house and do your own thing. And that's looming over the horizon, right? So you're kind of already starting to think for yourself. You're kind of already starting to get your own ideas of what you want to do, and maybe like what school you want to go to, or what work you want to do, or maybe you want to travel the world for a while. And I think that age just brings about more open thinking than when you were 13 or 14 and you kind of just did more as you were told.
Right.
You
right.
know, I think there's something about that. Really.
Oh, you don't know my kids. So I apologize for that digression, but I felt, given the nature of what we're talking about in the Halal Highway, like we said, navigating faith one detour at a time. This little wrinkle here about those teenage years, those mid to late teenage years, and many people starting, if not in some cases finishing their journey in that time frame. I thought I just wanted to like dip our toe into that conversation. That would be one that might be a very interesting sort of almost research project for us to dive into and then bring back.
Could be a whole nother video for sure.
At least. So my apologies, but just so that you guys are aware and you've already seen it in action. Our goal, once we turn this camera on, we're just going to let it play. And what happens. We're both, as you can tell, a little bit stream of consciousness. So we do have, believe it or not, we do have a goal, an agenda, a loose itinerary for the conversation, but we do want to keep it vibrant. We do want to keep it lively. And as we slowly grow to understand the technology and the platform a little better, we're going to try and create opportunities for live interactions. And as I've said in the past, when we see people that are engaging regularly, we'll try and find a way for you to join in and maybe explore your own journey or your own questions around faith journeys, etc., to try and make this as two-way as possible so that it becomes a dialogue and conversation and not just, thankfully, two talking heads, not one.
Yeah.
So just a brief exposition. Consider this breaking that fourth wall. Deal with it.
Yeah.
On we go.
We're hoping to make this not like a lecturing scenario. That's the opposite of what we want.
Shades of Deadpool. That's all I can say. Whole other conversation.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's something to that age, and I think that's when I really started waking up. I got this saying, like, I really don't think you start to be an adult until you're 24. I think that starts at like 24. It most certainly did for me. So
actually, it's probably true for me too. Now I think
about it. After trying to struggle with that, I decided to do the worst thing that someone should do, and I decided to read the Bible from cover to cover.
Oh, how dare you!
Terrible, awful. I know.
Awful. Bad idea.
The issues did not
Stop.
dwindle.
Yeah.
The issues
I
grew.
was literally just having a conversation with somebody about I don't remember if it's in the chapter of Solomon, but the whole chapter that's essentially pornography.
Oh yeah.
And it's and this is one of those challenges when, as a Christian, you say this is the literal word of God, and then you go, "This is the literal word of God."
Moving right along through the chapter,
we need to have a conversation about that. Well, that's a whole other conversation again.
Yeah. So I am born and raised in Dallas, Texas. I was born in the late '80s. Little background. And I was adopted into a fairly regimental but good family. My father was in the military, and he later became a business, numbers guy. And yeah, and my mother, what? And my mother was a Methodist minister, and so that's how that all got started. So I, after reading, had to find a different minister or priest to address my issues to, because I could not have the conversation with my mother. I was too scared.
But I guess a curious question just popped in my head when you said that just now. You say you were too scared.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, from the conversations we've had, your mother, it wasn't this mommy dearest type of mother. It's what was it that you were scared of?
I guess there's my mother has this natural power to her. I don't know.
I get that.
Like
I think any preacher has that.
Yeah,
it's one of those things.
Very imposing woman.
Yeah.
Very. She'll always tell you how she feels, and
so that makes me have to ask now. How tall was she? Is she?
Oh, I'm the biggest person in my family. Tall has nothing to do with it.
No, the reason I ask is I picture you saying that because that's when it becomes really ironic. Is that you got somebody like 5'2", $103, and then they feel like they fill the room when they come in.
Yeah. No, I can pick her up and throw her. It just the size of her persona, she's this sweet little lady, but the power that she imposes is just crippling.
The 70s meme wants to say aura.
Oh yeah, her aura, natural aura. That's a good one. Aura, man.
You've got generational differences going on here too, so you're gonna get some really weird references out of me that he's probably even gonna be like, huh? My wife does that.
So long story short, this conversation with this this priest, this minister, did not bear fruit. In fact, it got to a point to where he just said, I need to have more faith. There really was no reconciling or coming to a middle ground on this conversation. So I came to this point where I was trying to come to terms with what is God? What is the one who created everything that seems like everybody and everywhere in the world has a mention of? I don't care if it's what name you have for it, the great spirit in the sky, whatever. We're talking about the same thing. And I just fervently wanted to figure out and search for that. And so my logic steered me into the direction of, okay, Jesus, the man who was here on earth, was Jewish, raised Jewish.
Right.
So I went that route. If I can do what he did and
Actually, seems
learn
like a
what
very
he
logical
did,
route.
yeah. I figured that I would come closer to what
Right.
that is. So I did, and
It
I
sounds like my logic. As I'm listening to it, the way you're telling it this time, it sounds a lot like the way I was thinking as well.
yeah,
With trying to go to this, like try to get as close to the source as you can,
yeah,
and drink from the waters or the purest waters you can to get
exactly.
the real taste of it.
Well, and what I also kept telling me was like it was good enough for him. It's not good enough for me.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
So
It's a whole other irony.
yeah, well, so I went to Hebrew school, the whole 9 yards. Did the conversion ceremony after about like a year of study, and
I think we asked this last time. But I gotta ask. So, snip, snip.
Artie,
We did.
baby,
I remember that now. Yes, I
baby.
remember that
I,
conversation
I
now.
didn't get a choice.
Yeah,
It made everything easier later on.
no doubt. No doubt.
Um, so that is one of the things that got me about Islam versus Judaism.
Hmm.
There's in-depth study that you have to do to be a part of
Yes.
Judaism. And I was even going into reform, which is the easiest, and
And it was still that
it's
hard.
still hard, and they could
And see,
still deny me.
this part of your story is something that's really stuck with me
Mm,
because you and I've had this conversation about the
right.
process of, and even, yeah, I remember you saying that that's it.
Yeah.
You were surprised that this is
No.
all it took.
Yeah.
And that was even with having sat in my class as
Yeah.
well.
I thought your class was like the beginning, and I was
Right.
like, okay, what's next? And you're like, that's it.
So building some sort of a structure around it, etc. Because there's a whole other conversation about new converts and confusion
Mm,
and all kinds of stuff that happen with that where I think that idea, some version of that, I don't think from a purely traditional sense Muslims could create a barrier to people becoming Muslim doing the Shahada in the
mm-mm.
simple way that you're familiar with.
Now
What
knowing
I
the
think, what
nature
I
of it.
think though, is that we would have to say that after that point, in order for XYZ things to be able to happen, or for whatever, then you need to go through these stages. You need to have some sort of a structured
Oh
process
yeah, there should definitely
of
be a follow up.
growth, right?
Yeah, there should be a good follow up with
The trick
that.
is implementing, but that's a whole other kind of story. I'm kind of
Mm.
brainstorming institutional changes
It
that need to happen.
absolutely blew my mind that all you had to do was say the Shahada and you're a Muslim. It literally made my brain numb. It did. I think I actually saw black and white for a moment. I was like, what do you mean that's all you have to do?
I think it's just because you were blacking out up there.
Yeah, well, my head wraps and everything were just too tight.
You guys, if you guys want to know what I'm talking about, just go to the YouTube shorts on Muslim Highlander, and you'll find his Shahada in there.
Mm.
So you can decide for yourself if he was looking a tad faint.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, sprung me out there. Like, oh yes, and speak, give a speech, go.
And he did. Oh my God, did he? At least 10, 15 minutes, I'm going to say. It was almost as long as my sermon.
So Judaism was great, but it always felt like there was a gap missing. First of all, Judaism does not necessarily advertise this, but there is a lack of acknowledgement, even disdainment for Jesus.
Yes, I had this
And
conversation with somebody recently as well.
and it didn't necessarily sit right with me because I mean I don't hate the guy, right?
Right.
Like I honor him. He did amazing things.
And I think you're right. I was having a conversation with somebody about this relatively recently. Told them, I said it was only like 1961 or something like that when the Pope formally absolved the Jews of the
Yep.
blasphemy against Jesus. I'm like, from their point of view, it's like
Yeah.
he's a bastard raised by a whore. It's like, how do you reconcile that when you look at the Christian right just calling the Jews the saved people, and praising them and everything. It's like,
right.
do you understand what they historically, arguably contemporarily say about your God? If we're doing this, if we're saying this right from a Christian point of view, Jesus is God. So at least at one time, if not still until today, with certain groups of Jews, it is theology to teach that this is not God, not even a prophet necessarily, but essentially a bastard child of a loose and lascivious woman.
The best that I have heard from being in the Jewish community, the best that I have heard was, well, he was a Jew, but he lost his way.
Interesting.
That was the best
Right.
I heard. And I had issues reconciling with that. Again, don't hate the guy, honor, revere.
Right.
Coming from Christianity, it was a little bit of a hard thing to swallow.
So just real quickly, just want a sentence or two about that whole experience with Judaism. As you saw how Islam looked at not just Jesus, of course, but all of these other prophets that are not Muslim per se, how did that strike you, having had that experience?
Having come from that and then learned about that, because it was your class when I had to find, I heard about that.
Right. That we cannot reject even a single one.
That's actually when it snapped. That's when it clicked. That's one of the key moments where I was like, okay, I'm onto something here. This is more in track with my line of thinking. And that made more sense to me, just even hearing that, than all the time I spent in Christianity and Judaism. It's more balanced.
Right. And that was actually part of the conversation I was having with them. Is one of the phrases in the Quran that you hear about the Muslims is, in Arabic, you say Ummatul Wasat, or the middle nation. That you have an extreme right, an extreme left, and you have a middle. And on many issues, Jesus is one example. You have the Jews who refer to him as a bastard child of a whore. You have the Christians who, by and large, call him either God or Son of God. Then you have the Muslims who say he's a highly revered prophet and messenger, worked miracles and raised the dead, but only fully man. Middle ground.
Yep.
And that's not the only place that happens, but that's the most obvious place that it happens.
Yeah.
So again, getting back to that idea of that point, it's like, that's one of those things that it's like, even, I mean, obviously I'm biased now, but it's like, even from the outset, it's like, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, if I saw that even back then, and I did, obviously, at some one point in time, it would seem so logical to me. It's like, these are both extremes. And as we've spoken about in the past, the deification of Jesus just plain didn't make sense to us.
No.
When we prayed, we didn't conceive of praying to or through Jesus.
No.
We were praying to God. And when we said God, we didn't mean Jesus. We meant God. And there was no necessary, like, speaking for myself, at least, there was no image we had when we said that, which is a whole other conversation.
I actually remember being 16 and sitting in church one day, because had to, and
had to,
and
no hat though.
No hat.
They're very serious about the hats.
Oh man, dude. That's a whole nother
thing. Yeah, I've been there, done that.
That's a whole nother thing.
Got the t-shirt.
I sat there and I listened very carefully to the entire church service of what everybody and everything was saying, even the hymns that were being sung, and even the prayers. There was not one mention of God. There was, thank you, Jesus. Amen. Jesus saves us. there was
Yeah.
not one mention of
something
God.
like that yesterday triggered a conversation with my wife and I about it. It was some comment or something where it was that same thing.
Mm-hmm. And I took my wife recently. I say recently. It was last like Christmas, but like she wanted to go to see a larger kind of church and go to a Christmas thing and whatnot. So I facilitated that with friends. And she noticed that too. She came out there and she said, you know, they didn't even mention God once. And I was like, yeah, I know. And she's like, I don't know about that. I was like, yeah, I know. That's why I'm where I am
now.
you
Yeah,
know.
exactly.
So that's something that always stuck with me. And it wasn't until I really just sat and listened at that one time where I realized that's how it was most of the time. I don't know, it just went like over my head. Just
Right. Yeah, well, I
so
mean, you're encouraged to be so in the emotion, in the whatever,
oh yeah.
where, for lack of a better way of saying this, I don't mean to sound unkind. You're expected, required almost to disengage your mind.
That could be. Yeah, I can see that. Because
You
a
know, give
lot
in
of
to the
it
spirit.
is feeling. A lot of it is feeling.
Yes.
And eventually I think what happens, like we, you know, backtracking to the 16, 18, you know,
Right.
logic kicks in and it has to be logical at some point. So then feeling will only cover so much, you
Right.
know.
Which I think is ironic when you think about it. The fact that at that age, that particular, for lack of a better way of saying this, logic circuit seems to kick in for so many people.
Right.
When, for all intents and purposes, that is probably the most illogical stages in a person's growth.
Right.
Of all the logic circuits to kick in
Right.
at that particular moment, that so many people seem to have that faith journey logic circuit kick in that time. That is,
And I
see,
mean,
that's raising a whole separate thing for
listen,
me
I
right
did all
now.
the youth groups. I
Right.
was
Oh
in
yeah,
choir. I was in the whole nine yards. You
yeah.
name it, I did it.
It continues to amaze me how many parallels our early journeys
Yeah.
have.
Yeah. No, it's really
This is why we're doing this, by the way. The fact that he and I share not just even like experiential journeys, but even philosophical, similarities in our journeys and everything else. To say, even though we're a generation apart, we grew up in different parts of the country, everything else, etc. There was a symbiosis in the journey, and even his journey becoming Muslim was one that I was fortunate to be around for. I'm not going to say part of, but around for like 5 years. And so, I even through those 5 years, I got to see him and, talk to him at various stages and various points before he and his wife had married and after, and, ups and downs and all of these things, etc. So that's part of the reason this whole thing developed, was it's kind of taking these conversations. And this is pretty close to what it was like sitting in our office and just we'd eat up 3 hours like that. I promise you it's not going to be 3 hours, at least not the version that goes online.
There's 4 episodes.
Now there's 4.
Yeah, so backtracking to Judaism now, everything was seeming good. It was all right. I was going through the motions and doing all the things that I was supposed to do. I was even I worked for a long time in the jewelry business, so I was even working with other Jewish people in the business. My life was just absorbed into it.
Okay, I can't help but ask the question.
Okay.
Some people make the accusation that jewelry takes its name from the Jew aspect of that.
I don't know if that's true or not, but I wouldn't be surprised historically if there is some kind of origin over link or something.
Because my wife used to talk about the gold markets in NYC and how they were basically run by the Jews.
I've been there. It's like a whole giant 4-block district. And then they barely even considered me Jewish. So, like, you know,
sound familiar?
It's a
all my other converts, reverts out there sound familiar?
Whole nother world. So from there, I was able to go to Israel through a birthright program. Apparently, even converts can go.
Explain real quickly for people what the birthright program is.
As far as I understand it, it is a program.
I saw an advertisement for it very recently, actually.
It is a program between the American government and the Israeli government to send young Jews up until the age about 24 to be able to go to Israel and get their historical heritage. Get their heritage, you know, blood flowing and learn about what it means to be Jewish. And it's no cost to you, or very minimal cost to you. It's very affordable. You basically pay for your food, or, you know, what have you. If you stay an extra day, that's on you, you know.
Stuff I remember like that. Didn't you say you stayed in the kibbutz, if I remember correctly?
Oh yeah. I that's part of what
don't ask me how I know, just kibbutz.
Yeah.
Look it up.
I was sweeping floors and helping with the I think it was an olive farm.
Yeah, I think I remember you saying that.
Whole 9 yards. So my ex and I we were able to go. I had met her at the temple. And that's when I had some problems, because this, I think, happened in 2015 or 2016.
Yeah, I remember we talked.
And even then, I saw clear issues of apartheid in Israel, and I really had a hard time stomaching it. I even saw military police, because they're basically the same thing,
right,
in riot gear and the whole 9 yards, beating women in hijabs on the street. Women of all ages, young to old. I even saw them trying to harass a older woman, like a grandmother.
Right.
And I didn't know exactly what started it. I almost, and I didn't care. The whole thing was clearly one-sided. And I remember going to...
the part that I always have a hard time understanding, how people can't see.
It's so one-sided.
Whatever started it.
Well, like, maybe one of them...
When you look at these guys, they're
practically Iron Man,
right?
Walking around.
Exactly, with semi-automatic weapons, helmets, mace, tasers, you name it,
AR-15s,
body armor, the whole 9 yards,
loaded,
and even
and
if they threw a rock or whatever it was, etc.
Right.
You know, it's like, come on, really?
Well, and my guide was he even told me, he's like, I don't necessarily blame them for throwing rocks at us. I get it. And I was like, okay, but then what makes you think that they deserve to catch a beating like this?
Right.
You know, like that's a whole nother thing. It was very hard to watch. And it was also evident that Muslims in Israel could walk only in certain places, and I could walk wherever I wanted.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, maybe if I did a little too much, I'd get into some kind of trouble. But I could do whatever I wanted. It was night and day difference.
Right.
And I was born in Texas. I'm fairly versed with firearms. I am not apart from that world. These guys are armed to the teeth. To the degree that police here could never be armed.
Right, yeah.
They would never allow it. It really is.
And it's to police a civilian population.
Yes. And I've been to many countries. I've been to countries in Africa. I've been to Haiti. I've been to China.
You don't see
I've
this
been
like
all
that
kinds
at
of
all. Yeah.
places. Yeah. I have never seen a military police group armed as heavily as Israel.
I know it probably wasn't exactly the same. This is just kicking off some random memory for me.
Mm.
So the Republican National Convention was in downtown St. Paul in Minnesota one year.
Mm.
And I happened to have to bus to and from work, which would take me through downtown St.
Mm-hmm.
Paul. I still remember the buses had to be detoured onto different streets because of all of the crowds and the etc. for the Republican National Convention, and there were essentially riot police staged down there. Not that they were responding to anything; they were just there in case of, and they were arguably, I'm sure, not to the same degree you're talking about, but the helmets, the semis, the body armor, the whole nine,
right,
passing by the bus in formation. It was such a surreal experience to be sitting on that bus in the middle of downtown where I lived at one time, not that long before that, and to see this army marching down the street.
Yeah.
It was surreal. And it only happened like once or twice to me in the whole time the convention was going on.
That is freaky.
And here we're talking about something that's going on, almost continuously for decades.
Well, and then imagine that they're the usual police everywhere.
Right.
And then imagine that everywhere you go, like you drive to a major city, you have to stop at cross guards.
Yeah.
And then you always have to check in no matter what, even when
Yeah.
you're going in between major cities. I mean, it's a whole nother thing. Now, granted, some of it is needed, but it really is overkill. And the stuff that I saw, I just had a very hard time swallowing. And
Sorry, Deadpool brain just kicked in. I'm just gonna stay quiet.
Well, what I left in my head, I came back, and what I realized was Judaism is not the same. American Jews do not think the same as Israeli Jews. And Israeli Jews barely consider American Jews Jews.
Right.
So it was a big wake-up call for me.
Well, did you get any sense of, I know I've heard this from others in the past, and we may have even had this conversation, that Ashkenazi, which for those who aren't familiar with the subdivisions within Jewish society, Ashkenazi are what are termed European Jews, and they make up the majority of what is present-day Israel. There's the Sephardic. I don't remember the other one right now off the top of my head, the name of it, but there's Spanish and Yemeni Jews, essentially Andalusian Jews and Yemeni Jews, and Mizrahi, which is the Iranian Jews, if I remember correctly. So there's many subdivisions. Only the Ashkenazi are given this special status. The others, they run the risk of being grouped in with the rest many times. As
far as I remember, because I was able to tour a lot of places and see the government structure. I even talked to a Israeli lawyer for a little while, just to get an idea of things. I don't know what it is now, but back then in 2016, I can easily tell you that the government was primarily Ashkenazi.
Right.
I mean, almost 98%.
Yeah.
It's just how it is. So it's a very foreign concept.
On so many levels.
On so many levels that a lot of people just, I barely understand. A lot of people won't even understand. So after then, a lot of things started happening to me. I was in a bad car wreck. I had to kind of get my life back in order from that. My marbles were scrambled. but it took me about 2.5 years or so for me to get myself to actually feeling like I was a normal human being again after that car wreck. And during that time, I basically did not continue to go to the synagogue.
Right.
I did not. I left my job and I was focusing more on me, and I wasn't worried about all that other stuff.
Mhm.
So I was at this point then where, okay, this was a major hitch in what I thought was right for me. So what's right
Mhm.
for me?
Yeah.
And so I was basically starting that over again. And I told myself I would study all the religions and get the sense of what exactly is right for me. I'd go about it open minded. I would
Mm.
dive in head first. I would learn the prayers, eat the food,
Yeah.
spend the time in the communities. It doesn't mean that I would necessarily join, but I would at least give it a half a year to a year of my time to actually learn.
And I can tell you from direct experience, this is exactly what it sounds like because I got to watch him through one of the last of those particular segues that he did into a faith community to not just understand but experience it as much as a regular person from that community would.
Mm,
And there's a whole host of stories we could share from that experience as well.
mm,
But so, I mean, when he's saying this, and we'll get into it. He'll get into it maybe now, maybe later, in some detail. But he was, for all intents and purposes, of those communities,
mm,
if not only in philosophy, sometimes fully in practice as well, and indistinguishable from someone who wasn't, and in some cases did fully accept and join, etc., to a certain degree. So, I mean, he's not exaggerating. I promise
mm.
you, from personal experience, he is not exaggerating when he tells you this.
Even before I took my Shahada, and I had my wife and I were at Roots doing a pillars class for her, and also for me to double up. Um, when they had heard that I was going to take Shahada, they were like, "You're not Muslim? Like you're the most Muslim non-Muslim I've ever met."
Matt, right? Yeah, yeah.
um,
Another similarity, because I had spent 2 years attending Juma almost every week while still going to the church. So
mm,
I was pretty Muslimy looking and sounding by the time I finally decided to take Shahada. So
mm,
again, another one of the reasons why we are doing this, because that slow, deliberate, methodical, even some might call it obsessive way of doing things.
mm.
There are some striking resemblances to my own path as well. And so, again, one of the reasons why the Halal Highway was built.
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely a lot to discuss on that. But that's my journey in a nutshell. And so, I mean, from there, I learned about Hindu, Buddhism. I studied and practiced with the Sikhs,
Mhm. Which
um,
is where I came into the picture.
the whole 9 yards. And I was really trying to figure out where best I was aligned. But what I also figured out from doing this is that everything has hints of the truth in it. Everything
Mm,
has this idea of what the creator is. Now, whether or not they did have it and
mhm.
strayed from it, or they have it and they just have their own way of going about
Right.
it, either way, they have or had it. And that was interesting to
I'm
me.
curious as you say that, having um, kind of come full circle to concluding to become fully Muslim and
Mm,
practicing and everything else. Looking back on those bright shiny objects you found along the way,
Mhm.
and what they seem to show you from that. Because I had a similar aha moment when I saw what seemed like a commonality,
Mhm.
but at the time didn't know what to do with it. And it sounds a little bit like the same thing for you. It's like you notice this, and it's like, okay. Looking back on it now,
Mhm.
what do you? How do you put that into context
How do I put that into
with what
context?
you know and believe and everything else now?
So, for example, the Sikhs have a similar sort of idea and realization of a creator who made all things, who is not man, nor is like here living amongst
Mhm,
us.
mhm.
It is this thing that we can this being that we can barely get an idea to grasp about, right?
Right.
Like whatever you're thinking is God, Allah, who created everything. That is just a minuscule fraction of what that
Truly
actually
is right.
is.
Yeah.
They have a similar way of looking at it. They just go about it in a completely different way. And they have a different name
Right.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
but the idea is the same. Sort of how I also believe how a lot of indigenous like natives have the idea of the great
Mhm.
spirit who, you know,
Which I can
created the
which I
lands.
can speak to directly because one of the mileposts along my journey was Native American spirituality and reading Black Elk Speaks.
Mm,
And so this idea of the Great Spirit, which is kind of like the All Father, if you will, in a sense similar to Odin, in a sense, but this overarching supreme deity
mm,
exists within Native American spirituality, and this Great Spirit is pretty common throughout Native American spirituality, and it sounds
mhm.
like similar concepts, possibly relatively similar names, exist through even some of the other Native peoples as well. Even, and I don't know how much animism or African animism or whatever you ever encountered, but
I've
I would not be surprised if similar concepts exist even within that, or maybe voodoo would be
yeah.
a good example.
No, voodoo has it too. Voodoo has, of course, the idea of the being who created everything. But that's one of the key things. And my biggest question to some who have this idea and
Mhm.
realization but don't necessarily implement it, or maybe they have other beings and deities in them, say
Right.
Hindu, what have you. My biggest question then was, why bother with all this when this guy
Yes.
is the one who's the head honcho? Like if we
Mhm.
all know this, then why is all this important? And
Right,
that was a thing that I was slowly coming to terms with,
right.
was I care the most about this
That
one
one,
thing.
right, yeah.
And inevitably it leads, I
Twist,
feel, to Islam,
right.
because Islam hones in on that very idea since even the times of Abraham, and you know it. Uh uh and it I feel like it'll always stay that way.
Right.
It's so cemented in.
Mhm.
I don't see it changing. You know,
Right.
it's so it's so core. Um, it's such a core mentality that
Yeah, yeah.
it's very specific, and that is why I like Islam. It focuses more on the Father who created all things, on the
Mhm,
being
mhm.
who gave everything life versus any of
All
the
these
other
other
stuff.
things, right, exactly.
Don't even get me started on saints. I don't get it.
And so I think for time's sake, because I have no idea how long we've ran, we'll tie on this conversation off here. There's a lot to go. I think we're right up to that point where you start to actively look into Islam at this
Mhm,
point, I believe, which
mhm.
is as good a place as any to to pick up from.
Sure.
I want to close on this thought as I was listening to what he was just saying about why not believe in this one rather than all of these, which you find in so many different places. It reminded me of an encounter that the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, had with one of the Bedouin Arabs. And he was asking him about what he believed. And he believed in, I don't remember the number, don't quote me, something like 7 different gods. It's like 1 in heaven and 6 on earth. So, well, which one do you go to when you need rain or something like that? He goes, well, the one in heaven. Because then why not leave all these on earth and just pray to the one in heaven? Which is essentially the exact same thing that he's talking about. Is that the pagan Meccans, the pagan Arabs, they believed in Allah to some degree or another. They had all of these idols. Historically, some accounts number them up in the hundreds that surrounded the Kaaba. So the Kaaba existed prior to the Prophet Muhammad. So that's a whole other history lesson that we won't get into. But so there was the God in heaven, and there were all of these earthly gods that they prayed to for various things, sacrifice and this and the other thing through lots and everything else to get their fortunes, or to figure out should they go into business, go this way, go that way, whatever, etc. And so this exchange is going. When you need this thing, who do you go to? And he says, well, the one in heaven. He says, well, why not just worship the one in heaven?
Right.
It's a very simple logic. Right. And it's very, very, very similar to what he was just saying. And so even when you look at the traditional basis and the traditional structure around even that conversation that was being had with people, it was very similar. I mean, our journeys, as personal and as unique as they feel to us, in some ways are not really unique at all. They're everyone's journey. And that's part of the reason this whole podcast exists, because we believe that the journey is a very necessary part, and that yes, each one of our journeys is going to have its own idiosyncrasies, its own uniqueness, and its own milestones. There's certain milestones in Tamir's journey that I definitely didn't stop on, and vice versa. But there's still an underlying similarity, especially philosophically. I mean, the more we talk, the more I realize that although the path we traveled to arrive at that point varied somewhat, philosophically our minds were constantly always moving in the same direction. And that's kind of what this entire thing is about, is just having these conversations, hearing these stories, and the processes is not hiding our failures, our faults, our confusions,
for sure,
etc. As I had said in our introductory episode, we've all made mistakes. We're probably making some now. God knows we've made a few now. I've already seen what I did to the camera a couple times. We're going to be making mistakes in the future.
Despite the mistakes, and let's say that these structures weren't here. Let's say that there was no organized Judaism, or there was no organized Islam, or what have you. I still think on a mental and spiritual level, in some way, I would still come up to the idea of, I think that there is still this one being that created.
Seems the natural conclusion. Yeah. No, I would agree. And I think I think you without getting into it, because right now my brain isn't clicking on anything particular. I think that's when you look at the Quran, that's kind of the message the Quran is laying out, is that if you just looked at the signs in the heavens and the earth, and even in your own bodies, you would realize that this can't be 2 or 3 or 4, because if it was, you'd be looking at sheer chaos.
Right. Things would be very different looking on different.
The fact that things work at all, is testament to the fact that there has to be not just a grand designer, but a single grand designer. Where there are 2 grand designers, you would have competing systems.
Forces.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So we could go on, as you can tell. So we'll tie it off here. We will pick up. I'm not going to give a time frame, because this turned out to be a very different time.
Next week or two.
As soon as we can. In a week and a half, 2 weeks from now, inshallah, God willing, I'll try and remember to translate. If we ever forget, please don't hesitate to call us out on it. In a couple weeks, hopefully, we'll work on the what might be at least the penultimate segment of his story for now. And then we'll carry on. We might go into my story. That very easily could be more than 2 episodes, but we'll try and not do that to you, etc. But so I am your brother, Saeed Purcell, aka the Muslim Highlander.
I am Tamir, Cowboy Tam.
This is the Halal Highway. Yeah, I'm putting it on you. Navigating faith, one detour at a time. He's gonna get it eventually.
By episode 4.
Salam alaikum, peace, yo.